gotta talk about Jada Pinkett revealing that she's been separated from Will Smith in an interview. Jada. I've heard the opinion of certain people in the black media space. I've heard the opinions of certain people within that's within the more pro-diaspora sphere. I've heard people in the FBA pro-diaspora sphere. I've heard people in more the FBA more nativistic sphere. I've heard from the FBA sphere that's more pro-black, period. More like a Tariq Nasheed. He's just pro-black, pro-black, period. He cares more about the lineage, but at the same time, you ain't gonna just abuse black people in front of him. I've heard from all over the black media. I've heard from Roland Martin. I've heard from Stephen A. Smith, which people may not consider him to be black media, and I certainly don't, but I've heard from him too. So it's not just certain people I've heard from. My thing is, Jada Pinkett and individuals like Jada Pinkett are a symptom of a problem. I'm going to say that again. Jada Pinkett and those like Jada Pinkett are a symptom of a problem. I'm going to say some things right now that some people may not care for. But I want to go ahead and announce it now. I love women. I love black women. I love white women. I love Asian, Mexican, all of you. I love every woman because guess what? I think women in general are way more pleasant to be around than men. I think even most men would probably agree with that. You would have to admit that your mother has a certain kind of love for you that you love your father too, but your mother loves you. Will always have your corner and will never, some moms, they believe in tough love, but a lot of them don't. They'll always be in your corner no matter what, because no matter what, you are their baby. However, tough love, fatherly love, motherly love, and love for black people, all that aside, Jada Pinkett is a symptom of a problem. We in the black community, we have been infected with certain ideas from the left. And those ideas from the left include the idea you can never hold a woman accountable for anything. For anything. And that whenever something happens, men should be to blame for everything. And you can kind of tell how certain people are playing it. Because I was listening to Tariq Nasheed, right? And he was saying, is Jada necessarily a problem? And I can respect his perspective because he's at least trying to, I would say, being journalistic. I would dare say, even more journalistic than, a lot of these so-called journalists. That's why, even though we may not see eye to eye on everything, I can respect the man to a certain degree, because at least he's willing to do the work that the freaking New York Times or a Washington Post is unwilling to do. But as I'm listening to him, I can tell who a large portion of his audience is, because he wasn't going to offend him. Notice how whenever people like that, or someone like a let's give another example, right? Tasha K, or let's say a Cynthia G, or Roland Martin, or even Stephen A. Smith, or say someone like Aunt Karen. Notice when they want to have a conversation with women, how the conversation is a lot more softer, a lot more considerate, a lot more nuance and context is given. Except for when it comes to men, oh, y'all just dusty. Oh, y'all gotta do better. This is there's a lot more name calling, a lot less consideration, and that is a symptom of a problem. We think that because men are men, that men should just toughen up and just take stuff. Well, the problem with that is that works in a society whereas a man can come home and expect certain things from his wife. See, you can beat up on a man back in the day because there were certain things he could expect to come home to. Right? But that's no longer the case. That's no longer the case. When you have family courts who encourage women to take a man to the cleaners, well, see, being tough on a man in a relationship, or having expectations of that man to keep a woman happy, when the drawbacks to being a housewife are no longer there, well, that exposes a problem. The same way the family courts haven't caught up to the shenanigans of some of these modern day women, the same way as even the criminal justice system with all these false claims of SA. That does happen against black men. Maybe it's rare against white men, but it's not rare against black men. Maybe, the same way that society hasn't caught up to some of the negative, toxic attitudes of the modern day woman. The same way, and I'm not saying all women, but a lot of them, a lot of the toxic behaviors, right? It's the same way people are skewing their opinions when it comes to this, or trying to play devil's advocate, even though there's no devil's advocate to play. You want me to believe that Will Smith, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, who could have any woman that he wanted, any woman. I mean, at one point, we're not talking about modern day after he slapped, freaking Chris Rock, Will Smith. We're talking about Independence Day, Will Smith. Bad Boys, Will Smith. Will Smith has been in some iconic roles, and he could have had any woman that he wanted. Do you think that when he was the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he envisioned himself being in a marriage later on when he was a freaking older adult? Could you imagine him at 21 imagining that he'll be in a marriage, him, Will Smith, one of the hottest things in Hollywood at that time? Do you think he could imagine himself being in a marriage whereas his wife's lover moves into their home? Do you think that Will Smith was aware that Jada was like this before? Or do you think that, like a lot of marriages, same thing that happens to women, I will admit it happens to women all the time, that men change, that just become somebody completely different. Do you think that it's possible that Jada changed? See, people don't even entertain that idea because you can't present the idea that the woman is wrong. See, if you look at some of the fan bases of some of the people that's actually tried to play devil's advocate or even defended Jada, by God, defended Jada, look at that. What you'll find is that their fan bases are loaded with women. See, your opinion oftentimes dictates how you feel about things, but I know I have a lot of women too. But the kind of women that I have around, they're different. They're not the kind of women you're going to find in like nightclubs, or the kind that you're going to find blaming men for everything. See, I have a kind of fan base whereas I go after police officers, and sometimes they call for me to go after women police officers, and my fan base knows that. So they don't expect for me to make excuses or talk around what women do, because I hold women officers accountable all the time. So when you hear people like certain individuals in the black media defend Jada Smith or try to play devil's advocate, understand that's not coming from, in my opinion, a genuine place. It's coming from a place of trying not to accept, of trying not to upset certain members of their fan base. That's where it's coming from, or taking a position on something, but taking a safe one. The safe position in this case is always going with the woman and never the black man, because it is always okay to embarrass and humiliate a black man. It's always okay to do that. It's never okay to even suggest it is a woman's fault and a woman's fault alone. Because like Stephen A. Smith said, She's embarrassing her husband. Why in the world would anyone cape for that? Why? Why would you even play? Even if you think there's an arrangement, right? That's irrelevant to the fact that you're embarrassing him. Well, he embarrassed himself. It doesn't matter. People have forgotten about this, and she brought it back up. The same way as you got people out there saying, you shouldn't talk about this. You should be more quiet. You shouldn't. Why can't you say the same thing for Jada? Because once again, you don't want to upset your freaking fan bases. And I see, and that's why when, just on a few channels, I think on the average social media channel I have, I think at this point it's about at least 20 to 30,000 people per channel. Out of all 20 channels I freaking have. So, I mean, I've got a lot of followers from different parts of the world, different parts of my own country, different neighborhoods, different racial categories. But the thing is that the one thing that everybody knows about me on any channel that I'm on, YouTube, TikTok, X or Twitter, whatever, Facebook, doesn't matter where you find me, I'm going to be real. And if I'm just being real, man, these toxic behaviors, stuff like this with Jada, it doesn't make black women look better. It doesn't. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Stuff that Britney Spears doesn't make white women look better. It doesn't. It doesn't. You see some of these Tatianas with freaking, from the Hispanic community, it doesn't make the Hispanic community look better. Other communities, when they see stuff like this, they call it out. When other communities have their freaking Sukihanas, they call them out. Right? When other communities have their freaking sexy reds, they call them out. But it's only in the black community do we gotta constantly do this whole whataboutism or this maybe we can play devil's advocate. It's only with the black community. Only here. It doesn't matter if there's a freaking arrangement. If there's an arrangement, that does not mean you go around talking about it. You have an arrangement. And it's very interesting how the same folks who's telling me to be quiet about everything or not say everything suddenly want to play devil's advocate with this chick. Which lets you know what they're actually about. I keep it real every time. People have got to stop doing this, man. Defending or playing devil's advocate for this chick in any way promotes toxicity within the black community that we don't need. We don't need. She's wrong. Leave it there. In a candid interview, Jada Pinkett Smith revealed that she and her husband, Will Smith, have been separated for years. This clip is of her upcoming primetime special with Hoba Kobe, set to air on October 13th on NBC, has gone viral. Pinkett Smith confirmed to Hoda that there is much more to her long-term marriage that Will Smith basically ended 7 years ago. Shy of a divorce, they live completely separate lives since 2016. They married in December of 1997. Now, since then, they've been talking about how they keep their relationship fresh, how they have discussions about how they're still so much in love, and that was all cap. They were keeping up the facade. And granted, like certain people said, yes, Will and Jada are a brand. They're making money off of that. They're a brand, sure. But you got to also admit that if you're presenting things that's false to the black community, because a lot of people in the black community said, you remember when people kept saying, if Will and Jada don't freaking make it, then I just give up. That's a brand. Yeah, sure. Get it. That's a brand. Understood. That's a brand. But the thing that you got to understand is that brand is toxic when it's based on lies. That's the part that I will blame Will Smith for. You presented a lie to the black community that you understood, Will Smith. You fully understood what your relationship meant to the black community. Fair or unfair, that's what it was, Will. And you understood that because you profiteered off of it. You presented a brand to people. You understood that. You got that. You internalized that. You got agents. You got marketing agents. And you understood that completely. And you understood that brand 7 years ago was based on a lie. You totally got that, Will. So for that part of it, I will blame Will Smith. I won't blame Jada Pinkett for that part of it. But everything else, from what I can see from the outside looking in, and maybe there could be more information that actually comes out that corrects me. But based on what I'm seeing, we can see who's the toxic person here. And we can see the reason why so many people in the so-called black sphere is avoiding saying that, because it's a woman. Again, it's much easier to attack a black man than an actual woman. This is why you don't really see them going after black women who date outside of black people. You don't really see that, because they understand that to a certain extent, if you do that too often, you're gonna start losing large percentages of your freaking fan base, because a lot of black women divest too. And divestment isn't just dating outside of your race. Divestment is dating outside of your race and then pouring all of your resources into other people outside of your race. It's not just dating someone outside of your race. My God. Because it's very strange how a white man can go over to freaking Japan, Mexico, the African continent, and have all the babies that they want, free of judgment. The LGBT community can go around. They can be gay, they can be trans, they can be lesbian, they can be whatever they want, free of judgment. You say anything to them, you will lose your job. But suddenly, it's okay to do that to a black man, to judge his dating choices. And then when his woman acts out, suddenly it's okay to blame him for that too. And she says, when she was asked about why their relationship fractured, she said it was a lot of things. By the time we got to 2016, we were just exhausted with trying. I think we were both kind of just stuck in our fantasy of what we thought the other person should be. A fantasy. Jada Pinkett is out here talking about how allegedly Tupac proposed to her. That's one of the claims out there. And she keeps a picture of Tupac on a freaking nightstand. That kind of toxic crap. I'm sorry, what part of a brand or a freaking agreement is that you got a picture of another man on your nightstand that you say proposed to you? That's toxic behavior, but we can't call that toxic because she's a female. That's why you see all these people from the so-called black media acting like simps. Can't call things what they are, because you so afraid of your Patreon and donation dollars drying up because you want freaking donations. You can't keep it a buck because you want to keep it a buck. I'll say it for you again. You can't keep it a buck because you want to keep a buck. Okay. I will Dr. Umar it for you. You can't keep it a buck because you want to keep a buck. Okay. I get it. But I'm going to call it what it is. Jada, you're toxic. Toxic. You are a symptom of everything that's wrong with the black community. Everything. You much like a lot of women, even outside of the black community, are allowed to do whatever you want to do. And then when you're judged for it, we had a freaking entanglement. No, you were cheating on your husband. You were engaging in infidelity by the legal letter of the law that is called infidelity. You want to know why? Because a lot of women do this whole we are in an open relationship. We are ethically non-monogamous. And then as soon as you get into an argument or there's a freaking breakup and you end up in freaking family court, Your Honor, I never agreed to be in an open relationship. It was all his idea. Here's all these pictures of him being with all these people, and he coerced me. Right? They pull that crap. Oh, I'm in Washington State. I know the game. My wife is a court reporter. I know the game. I've seen cases like that. I know the game. Oh, they do that a lot, man. Oh, especially the white women. Oh, they love pulling that crap. But I've seen black women do the exact same thing though. I've seen white and black women of all races do this crap. So, usually they say, oh, it's the man's idea to open up a relationship. It wasn't that case here. I don't believe that. I think it was Jada. She has ghosts from the past, Jada. Because some of the stuff that she's done is just flat out disrespectful. And people out here, they understand the link that Will and Jada has to the black community. They get it. So they understand what people perceive about Jada. They're going to mentally project that and push that onto black women. Because for the longest time, the prototypical if you looked at the prototypical relationship, right? The prototypical, right? With Will and Jada, it was a representation of the black community. It was. And that's the problem. It was a stand-in for a lot of it. And that's what I find unfortunate. That's what I find unfortunate. That's what I want to change. That I wish were better. That I wish personally were better.